Internal financial control. All of Area D, functions of accounting and internal financial control are all going to come back again in the F8 paper, so in the basic auditing paper. But internal financial control is looking at things like, how can we prevent fraud? How do we make sure that the bills that are being paid by the company are actually for things the company has purchased? So in other words, how does LSBF make sure that when they are paying for a television that perhaps they're going to use in a classroom, it is actually going to be used in the classroom and it's not going to be used for me? So I buy a television, I get LSBF to pay for it, I take the television home and watch it. How do you prevent that kind of thing from happening? Area E and Area F are all about people, and both of these areas will lead towards paper P3 and paper P5, but paper P3 in particular. So Area E, one of the first jobs that you might well have when you have been an accountant for a year or two might be to supervise some other people. So when you first start, you will have a supervisor, you will have a manager. So say that again. So when you first start, you will have a supervisor, you will have a manager. But after a few years, you might be put in charge of some other people. Area E is about how do you manage those people. How do you manage one person? You have one person who reports to you. You've got one person that you are a manager for. What about if you've got a group of people, a team of people? How does that change? So Area E is quite a big area because it's talking about people. Area F, your organisation will not be successful unless you employ the right kind of people. Well, if you're going to employ the right kind of people, where are they going to come from? What do we mean by the right kind of people? Who are the right kind of people? Are they people with particular skills, particular knowledge, particular experience? Or are they people with a particular attitude? Maybe they are hard workers. Which is more important? And it will depend on what we're recruiting people to do. So recruiting employees, and once we've recruited them, we want to get the most out of them. We might want to train them for various positions. So Area F is all about how do we get the right people, and then how do we get the most out of them. So you've got a very, very varied syllabus there. It's quite a big syllabus. How is all of this big syllabus going to be tested? Well, the exam is basically a 2-hour multiple choice exam. Some of you will be doing the exam on a computer. Some of you will be doing the exam on paper, in an exam hall. It basically makes no difference. The exam format is the same. If you are doing the exam on paper, the exam paper will have been written especially for that exam by the examiner. So they are different every 6 months. If you are doing the question on a computer, what happens is the ACCA have a selection of hundreds of exam questions. And when you sit down to do your exam, the computer will randomly choose some questions for you. So if you were to look at the person sitting next to you, which you're not supposed to, but if you were to sit and look at the person next to you, they might well have a very different exam to you. So every computer exam is done individually for one person. They just choose questions at random. Whichever one you're doing, the format is the same. So the exam consists of 90 marks. Not 100, but it's out of 90. 40 questions which are worth 2 marks each. 10 questions which will be worth just 1 mark each. The 2-mark questions, the ones that there are 40 of, tend to have 4 answers to them, A, B, C, D. The 1-mark questions only have 1 answer. Yes, no, true, false, things like that. So there will be 90 marks. Although it is a 2-hour exam, most students do not have any trouble with the time because there aren't any calculations. The final thing as far as the exam is concerned, it says questions may be fact-based. Tell me what is meant by this. Here is something that I'm describing. What is it that I'm describing? And you have 4 choices. However, you might have knowledge for a brief scenario. Now, what that means is, when we have a look in the course about culture is a topic that's examined, there is a particular writer about culture called Charles Handy. And Charles Handy says there are 4 kinds of cultures. We don't really need to worry too much about this today. It's simply an example. So the 4 kinds of culture are power, task, role and person. So what the examiner could do is he could say, here is a definition. So, for example, all the workers do their jobs in the way that they have been told to. Which of Charles Handy's cultures are they following? Are they following A, power, B, person, C, task or D, role? And if we know the definition, we know which one it is. So that's a fact-based question. Another fact-based question would be, which of the following is a description of a task culture? Here's a description for A, here's another one for B, here's another one for C, and again you choose the right one, fact-based. You've learned what the descriptions are. Finally, a scenario-based question would be something like, X PLC is a bank. People who work in the loan application department, so he's telling you about a particular department, do their work in a particular way. They are all told exactly what to do. And then the question is, which one of Charles Handy's culture is most likely to be in the bank? Power, person, task, role. So in other words, we've been told some facts and we have to say which of these is it closest to. Now, most of your questions will be the fact-based ones, but there may also be some of these scenario-based ones as well. The final bit that we've got in this introduction is, what do you have to do in order to pass F1? Well, it's relatively straightforward. Basically, you have to learn things. If you learn the stuff, you will pass the exam. So learn the models and have an idea what they are actually about. So Charles Handy is talking about culture, power, person, role and task. Fair enough, but understand what culture actually is. Understand why it makes a difference whether you have a task culture or whether you have a role culture. It will turn out in the video when you watch it on the course that some cultures work better for some companies and not for others. Finally, have a go at least 2 exams under exam conditions. That means going through an entire 50-mark question paper. You need to do as many questions as possible, but don't do 3 or 4 questions and then stop and then another 3 or 4. You need to have a go at 50 questions for 90 marks under a 2-hour exam conditions. So you need to do that at least twice to get used to it. So F1 has got a very, very large syllabus and there is an awful lot of learning. The good thing about F1 is once you have done it, it prepares you for a lot of the later exam papers. And I have found that students that understand F1 tend to do better at those later papers.